4 two-handers with 5th on the way, 4 weapons that can be slotted in each hand, and 4 unique offhands, mean in total 13 weapons all competing for the same 2 slots in Warrior's Offhand. This could be in some way conceived as a positive, after all, variety is a spice of life. But on the other hand, it is also a negative, as the broader the competition, the harder it is to justify slotting the suboptimal weapon, and it is also harder to balance all potential options adequately. To shine a spotlight at some balance principles already in place that apply to Warrior's Offhand, none of them have far-reaching dash, as furthest you can gap close is with Gunstinger, which cannot be considered anything more than supplementary mobility, just as swiftness and shield bash are. Only ranged weapons in Warrior's arsenal are two-handed, so unless Arena decides to add main-hand pistol next expansion, utilizing flexibility of main-hand offhand setup is synonymous with being melee or at least heavily leaning towards. These are very considerable levers for purpose of class balance, and to compensate for them, offhands bring a wide catalogue of different upsides. Unique offhands especially. Starting strong, Shield is a combination of top-notch CC skill in form of Shield Bash, a short dash with stun on the end, and on top of that, strong defensive utility in form of Shield Stance, a 3 seconds worth of channeled hard block. There's very little that needs to be said about Warrior's Shield, as everyone can understand what a block does, and what a stun does as well. There's no nuance in shield skills, just a solid utility allowing you to survive pressure and to reverse the tides of battle. Next comes slightly more nuanced but still simple Warhorn. Charge removes movement impairing conditions, applies swiftness and quickness, and is a blast finisher. Call of Valor removes conditions and grants barrier on top of Vigor and another blast finisher. Must be noted in relation to these two that both synergize with Relic of Antitoxin, stretching their cleansing capabilities. Warhorn comes with up to 8 condition cleanses that can be just slapped onto your offhand, and even though Charge isn't most reliable as a cleanse due to its priorities, it still isn't enough to underestimate Warhorn's sheer cleansing potential. Next in line is Torch, with Blazebreaker being a complete fraud. You see, the damage of this skill is displayed as a big number on the tooltip, but in reality, it is a fraction of what we are advertised. Why is that? Blazebreaker used to be able to multi-hit, and in this case its damage was pretty substantial. However, in 2018, ability to hit the same target more than once was removed. Total theoretical damage is still pretty high, but because it is split into 5 instances of damage, the skill can only hit every opponent with only 1 instance of damage, and skill can affect up to 3 targets. This damage is inaccessible. At least Burning and Cripple aren't a lie. Speaking of conditions, Flames of War. Clear 3 of them off of you, and makes it everyone else's problem by pulsing Burning in AoE around you, with Final Pulse doubling the burn and dealing strike damage on top of it. This is a pretty loaded ability, with Cleanse, lots of burning and a little bit of power damage, while also being one of the very few warrior skills that carry on long beyond their initial cast time. You can swap weapons and drop entire combo before Firefield runs out, and that is good and bad, depending on how you look at it. You could, for example, build up might on yourself and vulnerability on target and time your damage combo with Final Tick of Flames of War for extra burst, or you could just be normal and play Conti. And last but not least, American Special. Dragon's Roar holds up to 6 ammo and expends all of it upon press of a button, setting off an explosion for every ammo spent, while also pushing your back. The pushback for some reason makes it considered movement skill, which sets off related traits. Gunstinger is a short leap which grants you Aegis, applies vulnerability to your target, and restores 3 ammo to Dragon's Roar, allowing for some simple yet satisfying combos within the bounds of this weapon, especially in versus modes where Gunstinger itself holds ammo. And now that everyone's caught up to speed, let's circle back to the beginning of the video. Broad spectrum of choices is only a positive when the choices are either all equal or there's enough specific enablers that will allow for suboptimal choices to shine through the foliage. Unfortunately, in Warrior's case, the enablers are often encapsulating multiple of the offhand choices, forcing competition within this subgroup. For example, Shieldmaster giveth its benefit to shield, pistol and offhand sword, not to mention soon-to-be-present staff. Warrior has only 2 weapon sets, excluding the Bladesworn, which has it even worse. But you know, Bladesworn really needs a break from the kicking, so we're not talking about him today. What I was saying is, benefit overlap between skills of just the 8 weapons that can be slotted into offhand specifically is already significant. You want cleanse in your offhand? You have 2 choices. You want multi-hitting AoE? You have 3 options. You want some form of defense against projectiles? You have 4 options. And you can pick max 2 of this pool, reduced by 1 for every 2-hander you take. And taking a 2-hander is often an important thing to consider, as only truly ranged options and only way to have 2 far-reaching movement options in one weapon set are both connected to 2-handed weapons. Not to mention unique upsides of weapons in question and synergetic traits. To that we have to add the artificial roadblock of having power and condition builds sorted separately, with hybrid builds being mostly a funny gimmick. For now. Poch, for example, is bad, putting it lightly, when looked at from perspective of a power build. Not only since the multi-hit change, Blazebreaker fails to impress, but also Flames of War do any power damage at all only on the last tick, so for the most part, what you get is a cleanse with fancy animation. And when you are playing a condition build, Sword Offhand presents more reliable and safer option for applying damaging conditions. On the other hand, Pistol is useless for a condi build because only condition it applies is vulnerability. But that's only a part of the larger issue, and you can probably see all unique offhands are good, and non-unique offhands are quite good as well. There's nothing that goes into Warrior's offhand specifically that is genuinely horrible. The worst is Mace due to no defense at all, and it is still really bloody solid. The issue with Warrior's offhand as a whole is that within the class there is not enough foundation for multiple different builds. You can run condi or hybrid builds successfully only on Berserker. Bladesworn has only 1 weapon set to use, and Spellbreaker's internal synergies force more CC heavy playstyle, which, considering the number of weapons with CC on them, end up being somewhat restrictive. On top of it, support build for Warrior is still on its way, but we already know how will it look. Staff plus Warhorn, with only choice to make being what's in your main hand. Warrior seemingly was designed with using a 2-hander, main hand and offhand weapon in mind, and it was done so in time before Elite Specs, which brought 3 more options for that slot, and much steeper competition within it. In current Guild Wars 2, build crafting for Warrior is a challenge. If you have an idea or see a synergy you want to make use of, most of the time just going for stances will net you a better result. And the sad reality of common brain rot is that optimizing fun out of the game also tickles the happy chemical spots in the lizard brain at every step of the process besides the last one. That said, as much as the issue exists for certain, it is not an issue with unique offhands, and credit goes where credit's due, they are the good part, one that doesn't collapse under its own weight, one thing besides brain damage that makes me enjoy this class, and one thing we'd rather keep mostly intact if class ever gets a rework somewhere down the line. We can leave offhands as they are for the foreseeable future, and game won't suffer as a result, which cannot be said about half of the Warrior's trait lines. In summary, wide library of choices is only as wide as the number of builds that can utilize said choices. Currently, what we get is between 2 and 3 builds per game mode that aren't troll builds, and only the PvE ones aren't the same old defense discipline we know, love and are tired of seeing around. But maybe it's just post-platinum stress disorder speaking through my mind. Perhaps with new season coming, we can test just how much these troll builds I speak of are really left wanting. For now, let's just put a stamp at the conclusion that unique offhand's good, and hopefully this entire tangent wasn't a complete waste of time. Crapface out.